Hello and welcome. Why are critics calling it the path to a civilian dictatorship? Turkey's referendum on constitutional reform is certainly controversial, and polls show people are divided. So what are the pros and cons of the change it would bring about? Well, the vote on an amendment falls on the 30th anniversary of Turkey's 1980 military coup, after which the current constitution was drafted. The ruling AK Party, led by Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan, says it's intended to reform the power held by the military and judiciary, whose secularist members have blocked many of the premier's initiatives. Turkey's main opposition group says it will allow the creation of a civilian dictatorship which removes checks and balances and also paves the way for an Islamist agenda. So today we ask, is Turkey's referendum a move closer to democracy or away from it? Remember, you can join our conversation with your questions and comments. You can send an SMS or an email or simply call into the show. Well, joining me to discuss these issues is Cüneyt Yüksel, a member of parliament from the AK Party who joins us from Istanbul. He has dismissed the claims of a civilian dictatorship as baseless. And here in DC, I'm with Ömer Taşpınar, the director of the Turkey project at the Brookings Institution. Gentlemen, I welcome you both to the show. And Dr. Yüksel, if I could start with you there in Istanbul and ask, how confident are you of the amendment passing?
Thank you very much, Riz. We are really confident that this will pass because this is, good for people. And people at the end will decide whether to pass or not. But since I am on the field visiting every city almost, from east to west, from south to north, so the people are going to vote yes.
Well, Dr. Yüksel, of course, I raised that issue of civilian dictatorship as it's come up so much in the media, and I know it's one that you are very unhappy with because it's got so much traction. How could you convince the critics and those who are skeptical of the amendment that this isn't something that simply gives the Prime Minister and the ruling party sweeping powers?
Well, because, Turkey cannot live with the tutelage of military or bureaucracy. So we are decided that Turkey should take the people should take their own position, and we have to make our own constitution, so we can go through 21st century strong regionally and globally. So that's why we are confident that what we are trying to do here, the amendments are also, we will help. For example, we are bringing positive discrimination for women, positive discrimination for elderly people, positive discrimination for, almost all these people who need it. So that's why people will vote yes to these amendments.
Okay, well, let me bring in Dr. Ömer Taşpınar. Good to have you in the studio with me, sir.
Thank you.
Now, of course, there's been a lot of campaigning around this referendum. It's almost been staged with the street demonstrations, the street rallies and so on, like an election. And I wonder, why is this particular referendum so important? And is there the danger this is potentially the end of the secularist Turkey that Kemal Atatürk was so keen to set up, and the end of an era for Turkey, as some see it?
Well, I think such fears are overblown. The country is still very polarized. You have basically a group of people in the country who believe that AK Party, the current government, has an Islamist agenda. Yet this government has been in power for the last 8 years almost now, and has a track record of overall democratization in the country. Yet it remains the fact that you have an old elite in Turkey, people who used to be in power, mostly Western educated, secular in outlook, who are nostalgic of the days when the military and themselves, the secular elite, was more powerful. And this referendum is essentially about the judiciary. And they're very concerned that the judiciary will now be politicized and that the current government will have more power to actually dictate over the judiciary the outcomes.
I'll get onto some of those issues in a moment, but I do want to point out, of course, and there are 26 amendments that are suggested here for the Constitution, including the human rights and women's rights and so on that Dr. Yüksel was talking about. But there's a sense among Turks I speak with that it's all or nothing. That they don't really have a clear choice on choosing. Some of these amendments work, some of them don't. We don't really have a say in it, is what they're saying. How hard is it making that for them to make a choice when they vote?
Well, it's a package deal. In fact, there are 26 amendments, and overall, some people would have preferred to see more democratization. In fact, in their original form, before the Constitutional Court decided to eliminate some of these constitutional amendments, there were more democratization packages into this referendum. However, now, of course, as it is the case with most referendums, you vote basically for what you have. And instead of people studying the technicalities of what they will vote for, it's essentially a confidence vote, whether they like the government or not.
Well, Dr. Yüksel, let me ask you, the government has been accused to some degree of not educating people enough to make a sort of an informed decision at the vote. I want you to address that criticism and ask, and answer, do people really know what they're voting for?
Well, actually, we are talking about the amendments. As Ömer was mentioning, that we have 26 articles, and we are always talking about the amendments. But the problem is with the opposition parties. The opposition parties never talk about the amendments. We are trying to convince people that, these amendments, for example, in one package, 26 articles, but actually when you look at it, what we have in these amendments is first to make better fundamental rights for people. And second, of course, judiciary. We want impartial judiciary. And of course, the third one is the economic rights. So altogether, the voting will be about this. And article by article, we are talking to people about the contents. But the opposition parties, of course, are trying to kind of steal this referendum and bring it to different discussion. We are not going to vote actually any party here. We are voting Turkey's future, and this is kind of about politics.
Right. Well, one thing, Dr. Yüksel, is that many Kurds have complained that they have been left out of the constitution and they've threatened to boycott the vote. What impact would that have, and really what is their position when it comes to the future?
Well, now there are people, who will vote no to the package, and there will be overwhelmingly people voting yes to package. And some people, especially the BDP, the Peace and Democracy Party, in pro-Kurdish so-called, they will boycott the voting. But I am from Southeast, as you know. I'm representing Mardin. And also we have, Kurdish population there. And I think the Kurdish population also are aware of the need and importance of this referendum and this package. So for everybody, there is something in this package, and I'm sure the Kurdish people will also vote yes to this package.
Okay. Dr. Tashbin, an email, if I could put to you, sir, from Moses Mashel, who wrote into our show saying, the winner of the upcoming referendum is not going to be the AK party, but the Turkish people. The best days as a nation are yet to come. Now, of course, the general elections are due to be held next year. What impact is this going to have? How much of this is simply a vote of confidence in the government? Well,
this will set the tone. I think it's crucial for the Prime Minister and the governing party to see what kind of popularity they enjoy. Turkey, over the last year, managed to do well economically. So there is unemployment in the country, yet overall compared to neighboring Greece, for instance, or Europe, the Turkish economy is doing rather well. So I think this will be a good litmus test for the government to see whether people still support AK Party after being 8 years in power. But the Kurdish question that you just mentioned is a very crucial one, because this government tried very hard to push for a Kurdish opening, for more democratization. Yet because of the attacks coming from the PKK and because of the mismanagement of the process, I think this Kurdish opening is now has come to an end. The opposition was never really supportive of that. That's unfortunate as well. So you have the large Kurdish segments of Turkish society who are doing economically better than before, who would tend to vote yes, but the militant nationalists are very disappointed that they're not getting more political and cultural rights.
Well, Dr. Yüksel, let's look at some of the changes that are proposed for the amendments, and let's look at the Parliament and Judiciary, for example, which I know you'd raised. Membership of the Constitutional Court would expand from 11 members to 17. 14 would be chosen by the President. The High Council of Judges and Prosecutors would expand from 7 members to 22. And the selection, which had been limited to judges, would expand to Parliament and political appointees. What is the main benefit of that change?
Well, basically, here we are actually trying to do what the European Union's countries have, increasing the numbers of constitutional court, for example, members of the Constitutional Court, First, we are trying to make the Constitutional Court as a Turkish kind of human rights courts, because as you know, Turkey in the European Courts of Human Rights is the second country that have most cases after Russia. So with this, we are trying to give individual recourse to constitutional court, Turkish constitutional courts. So we have to increase the numbers because the job will increase in this court. So we will have, more power in this constitutional court. For High Council of Judges and Prosecutors also, we are redesigning to bring it to European Union's level, so democratic level. And we are also, putting, for example, Turkish Parliament to have voice also in this selection process.
Okay. Dr. Tashminar, a quick thought before we move on to a break. There are those who say that this does fall in line with the EU's demands, in terms of reforming the judiciary, but it's also a way for the AK party to consolidate power, especially as elements of the judiciary in the past has targeted the AK party, suggesting investigations for anti-secular activities and so on.
That's right. Well, Turkey has an official ideology, unlike many Western democracies. That official ideology is named after the founder of the republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. And the courts, together with the military, have been traditionally seen as the guardians of this official ideology. In the past, the Turkish constitution and the role of the military basically created an environment whereby military coups were possible. So what we're witnessing now in Turkey, I think, is a further democratization, but with all democratization packages, it entails certain risks. That means that the military and the judiciary in the past, the kind of role that they played, they won't be able to play that kind of role. And of course, I think it's a good thing for Turkish democracy, but for those who fear basically a authoritarian Islamization in Turkey, they basically are concerned that this will lead to such an outcome as well.
We'll examine more of that in just a moment. We're going to take a very short break here. Now, when we return, also look to see what happens if there is a no vote to amending the constitution. How does Turkey move forward in that case? We'll be right back. Welcome back. Turkey votes soon on changing its constitution, almost 3 decades after it was created. A yes vote gives the ruling AK party greater powers, but what happens if the people say no in the referendum? Well, I'm joined by Cüneyt Yüksel, a member of parliament of the ruling AK, or Justice and Development Party. And here in DC, I'm joined by Ömer Tashminar, the director of the Turkey Project at the Brookings Institution. And actually, Dr. Yüksel, Dr. Tashminar just raised that issue about the military before the break. And I want to look at the impact that this amendment or the amendments would have on the military. The power of the military courts limited to exclude the trial of civilians. Civilian courts to try military officers charged with plotting coups. New rights of appeal for soldiers discharged by the Supreme Military Council, and repeal of an article that prevented the prosecution of the 1980 coup leaders. Give me some idea of how the country's top generals have reacted to this. Have you had any kind of pressure from the military side?
Well, of course, we want every citizen to react this to in a positive way, including the military or bureaucracy, everybody. So here, what we are trying to do here, in September 12, 1980, we had, as you know, military coup d'etat. And after that, we had this constitution. And they put in a kind of, protection in this constitution, so you cannot bring these military people to trial, to the court. So we are trying to remove this, and in this voting 30 years after 1980, we will vote September 12, 2010 to remove this shame, so nobody can have coup d'etat in Turkey again. And also, we are bringing military personnel if they make any wrongdoings, except, of course, their own task in military, to civilian courts. So any attempts, for example, for military intervention or coup d'etat, that they will be tried, they will be judged in the civilian courts. This is very, very important for Turkey's civilization and democratization.
Let me also look at the issues in the amendment, Dr. Tashbinar, of the impact on citizens' rights. And I know that Dr. Yüksel had mentioned some of those. Individual rights and freedoms, a right for citizens to appeal to an ombudsman, a government official that mediates claims. Now, some may say that's a consolidation of government power to control dissent rather than necessarily give more freedoms. What guarantee is there that people do have a greater voice in this?
Well, overall, when you look at the reports issued by the European Union, which monitors very closely Turkey's human rights progress situation, it's very telling that they have been supportive of such a change, and the European Union is on board for basically saying that this is an improvement for Turkish democracy. That doesn't mean that Turkey is a full liberal democracy yet. One would have wished to see more democratization in these packages. For instance, what the European Union and Turkey's Democrats are not happy about is this 10% threshold that you have to achieve in order to gain representation in the parliament. And when you ask such questions to the Prime Minister and the government, they say that they want to address these issues as well when they have a stronger majority in the parliament. But overall, I think the direction is one of further democratization in Turkey, not authoritarianism.
Well, let me put, Dr. Tashbinar, let me put an email to you that we just got in from one of the viewers by the name of Safet Tekin, who wrote in saying, the current constitutional amendments, though the most comprehensive so far, lacks articles ending the military tutelage system. Although it's insufficient, it deserves a yes vote. What happens if there's a no vote? Well, how does the country move forward?
Well, if there is a no vote, one can be sure that there will be early elections. This will come as a major disappointment to the government, and probably this will fasten the political process in the country. The opposition will say that this confidence vote for the government ended with a no vote, and they will push for early elections as well. So I would suspect there would be further political polarization if there is a no vote, and it would not be a good thing for Turkish democracy.
And of course, Dr. Yüksel, there's been the issue raised about Turkey becoming a much more Islamic country, which may contradict what's happening with the push towards EU membership as well. This email that came in from Wesley Tiku in New Hampshire in the USA says, Prime Minister Erdogan's goal is not to practice dictatorship, but to shift the country from a secular state to a total Islamic state. If you could address that view, that many people think this is just a shift towards an Islamic state, and then what sort of bearing does it have on the debates that have taken place in Turkey, for example, the hijab, the woman's headscarf, and how those debates might move forward?
Well, our goal is to bring our country to more democratic level and better for our people's standards of living. And our Prime Minister's goal is exactly that. So we are in the power for 8 years, and during 8 years we have been having democratic reforms, and also we are negotiating for the European Union for full membership. So nobody can claim that, for either dictatorial or for, bringing country to more Islamic level. Turkey is a secular state, a democratic state, and social state, and we are doing also, to make it even more democratic, more secular, and better social state.
Now, Dr. Yüksel, Prime Minister Erdogan has said that he wants to create a completely new constitution, literally start from scratch. How would that change the face of Turkey then? How would that be different from what might happen now with the amendment, and how the country would move forward with a completely new look?
Well, our goal actually in 2007, even before 2007 election, was to have a new civilian democratic constitution. But unfortunately, because of the headscarf articles in constitution, once we changed those two articles, the Constitutional Court filed a case against our party, a closure case. So we could not actually continue the process. But Turkey cannot go to 21st century with this constitution unless we make a new constitution first. But in order to make a new constitution, also, we cannot wait, and we need to make changes as broad as possible in Turkey, and these 26 articles bring also open, I believe it will open the door to have a new democratic civilian constitution. And we are going to have election next year. And I know that people will vote first in this referendum, but after 1 year, they will vote for the general election. And at that time, we will ask our people to, their support for the new constitution. Still, it's in our agenda because we believe that Turkey needs a new civilian and democratic constitution.
Well, Dr. Tashminar, about a minute to go, and I wonder, the AK Party is obviously in a very strong position, but if it comes down to it, when you look at the amendments, obviously, the resistance from the opposition is to what's being put forward. Is it just politicking, or does the opposition actually have something alternative to offer?
Well, that has been the large problem in Turkey. The opposition has been very ineffective in terms of proposing its own agenda. A little bit like in the United States with the opposition that President Obama is facing. You have an opposition which says no to everything in Turkey. And they have not been very supportive of the EU process. They have not been very supportive of the opening towards the Kurds or rapprochement with Armenia. So we don't know exactly what the new leader of the opposition party, who replaced the former leader, Deniz Baykal, proposes. He seems to be someone who wants more democracy, but it remains to be seen what kind of tangible projects he has in mind.
And of course, we'll follow on Al Jazeera what does go on with the referendum. Dr. Yüksel, thank you very much. Dr. Tashminar, thank you as well for taking part. And thank you for being with us. Now remember, you can download a free podcast of the show from iTunes. This week we're featuring a discussion on the future leaders of Africa and what it will take to move the continent forward from its colonial past. On the next show, it's just not cricket. As a corruption scandal erupts during Pakistan's ongoing tour of England, we examine the powerful and growing influence of illegal gambling syndicates. Be sure to tune in for that. From me and the team, we'll see you next time.